Welcome everyone, hope you're all having a fantastic day. Today we have a very special stream with a very special person.
Oh, you mean me?
I am going to be showing Mech here Magic the Gathering cards, because I'm a Magic player and he's a Yu-Gi-Oh player. So we both play card games, although he plays mostly digital. Have you ever played physical? You probably played when you were little.
Yeah, I played physical when I was little.
And then you moved to digital.
Digital because it was cheaper.
Yeah, I can relate to that. So I'll be showing him magic cards and asking him if he thinks they're good or bad. You're not a pro, obviously you're more a casual, you play for fun.
I mean, I know what meta decks are, I know how they work, I just usually don't play them.
As for me, I'm also more of a casual of Magic the Gathering. There was a time that I did try to play in the pro level, but unfortunately, in my country, there's not many opportunities for pro-level Magic. But I play a lot of Commander. I play pretty much every format that ever exists in Magic. And while I am not the best player, I would say that in terms of knowledge, I am pretty high there. I just, when it comes to practice, I tend to get distracted or in tunnel vision, so I tend to do bad plays. But in terms of knowledge, I'm pretty decent.
Jorgie the Corgi is trying to tell you that he is an Omega level nerd.
We are all nerds here. We're VTubers. Just FYI, Mech, you know Magic the Gathering has a lot of formats.
I mean, you've told me they've had a lot of formats because some people just don't like playing at the top format.
Yeah, so there are multiple formats. I'm obviously not going to be asking you like which format it's good or not. The reason why I'm saying this because there will be a lot of people who will watch this and be like, this card is good in this format, it's not trash. And I am already going to say, we're only going to be talking about, at least from my perspective, cards that are good in Standard, Modern, and Commander. Legacy too, but that's a little bit different. Other formats like Pioneer, which is also very popular, and Pauper, I am not going to touch because while I do sometimes look at them, I'm not as in-depth knowledge on them as the other ones. Here's the first one. First card of the day.
Colossal Dreadmaw. Or, oh, I forgot that at one point they call their players Planewalkers.
Oh, you're meaning...
So...
No. There is a permanent type in Magic that is called a Planeswalker that you can attack into. So in Yu-Gi-Oh, when two monsters battle, if a monster has more attack than the other one, that difference is subtracted from the life. So in Magic, that doesn't happen normally. In Magic, if a 6/6 hits a 1/1, no damage goes through. Trample...
Oh, so it just destroys.
Yeah, so the 6/6 just kills the 1/1. But
so the trample literally inflicts damage either way. So
yeah,
it's
so it allows you to go through. So basically, trample makes it a normal Yu-Gi-Oh card. The damage goes through.
Piercing is normal nowadays, but it wasn't originally. Anyway,
yeah, it's kind of like piercing.
I would say this is a pretty good card then, because I know Magic players don't have a lot of health or a lot of health points or whatever.
If you have any questions, you can throw them.
Do you have to play this with a certain deck? I'm guessing the Earth or whatever it's called, Tree deck.
So in Yu-Gi-Oh, the restrictions they have is that they have archetypes.
Usually in the card.
Yeah, the card, you can only play certain cards with other certain cards. You can't really like have cards from different archetypes interacting with each other because they're restricted to their own archetype.
Usually it depends if the card says it, as long as it says it, then yeah.
Now, in Magic, we don't do that. We don't need that because we have the colors, which essentially... To play this card, you need to be playing in green, which means you need to have lands that produce green mana to play this card. That doesn't necessarily need to be lands, but you need stuff that produces green mana for you to play this. And if you don't have it, you can't play this. And this includes for other cards, for other colors, and they all kind of have their own identity, and green is generally just big, dumb creatures and lots and lots of mana generation.
So yeah, I would probably say this is a good card then, if all things considered. But then I don't know how much green points you get each turn, so you can summon this thing.
You can play one land per turn. So realistically, you can play this at turn 6.
Okay, so Considering how slow I think Magic goes, yeah, that it looks like a good card then.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah, sure, why not? It's also a dinosaur, so I'm believing it's a good card.
Well, you made a lot of people happy because a lot of people love this card because it's a meme. The card is
Oh,
not good. So you see the symbol there with the M21?
yeah? What the
That,
hell
that
does
that's
that mean?
the fact that it's dark means that it's a common card.
Yeah, it's pack fodder.
Yeah, a pack
It's
filler.
pack filler.
The card is a very simple one, and lots of people love it. Lots of people meme about it as being the perfect magic card because it symbolizes the color green so well, which is a big dumb creature. 6 mana for 6/6 with trample, perfect dinosaur. And you made a lot of people happy because a lot of people love the card, and I respect that. But the card does not see any play anywhere. The card is not. It's
There's
just a
one
meme.
player probably still trying.
There's probably people trying, but they have never succeeded. The card is just not good. Magic is slow, but the creatures are not that bad. Okay. For 6 mana, you can get a lot more than just a 6/6 trampler. But you made a lot of people happy, and that's a first start. I just wanted to start with a very vanilla creature. Moving on to the next one.
Holy shit, what? Draw 3 cards?
I heard there's a similar card in Yu-Gi-Oh!
Anyway, I would have to. All I know about Yu-Gi-Oh, I would have to say this is a good card at very
Is
least.
that your final answer?
Yes,
Oh,
having more cards is usually better advantage.
that is true. The card is completely busted, and I'm pretty sure it's banned everywhere. Aside
Yeah,
from
I
Vintage,
wonder
because
why. I
Vintage is
wonder
whale
why.
town. Much like in Yu-Gi-Oh, where early Yu-Gi-Oh had trash monsters, but had really powerful spells. Magic was the same. Early Magic, they did not know what the fuck they were doing with spells. And
So basically the same thing for Yu-Gi-Oh. Okay.
yeah, this is a very old card, never got reprinted. It's banned everywhere that it's except for Vintage, because Vintage is its own little pocket dimension. The card is nuts. Obviously, 1 mana, draw 3 cards. Just insane. And I mean, I don't really have to go for much length. There's a reason why this is banned. There's a reason why Pot of Greed is banned in Yu-Gi-Oh! You do not want people to just have card advantage into card advantage into card advantage. Now we're going to start getting into more complex. I wanted to start with like more basic. Now we're going to go to where funny stuff is going to begin.
Flying. When an enemy casts their second spell each turn, convert. Draw a card, then discard a card. If you discard a non-land card, put a 1/1 counter on this. What the hell is this?
So this is 2 mana, 1/3 flying. So in Magic, flying is a mechanic, which basically means if a creature has flying, they can't be blocked by creatures that don't have flying. So basically, they're flying over the enemy. Think of it like that.
That's what I thought. The only game I have to suggest this is based off when I was playing Inscription, which is a good game.
Yeah, kind of like that. Actually, very much like that. The effect is, so in practice is whenever a player, you read opponent, it's not opponent, it's whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, you draw a card. You, the controller of this card, will draw a card, and then you discard a card. And if you discarded a card that's not a land, because the resources in Magic are in the deck, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, which is basically a permanent buff. It becomes a 2/4, and then a 3/5, and the more you do, the bigger it gets.
Hmm. I don't. Hmm. All I notice is that there's wings and brass knuckles on the side of it.
The brass knuckles is the set symbol, so basically it's to
Oh.
show which set did it come out in. Every set has a
Oh.
different symbol.
Hmm. I think I know what to do. I think this is a bad card.
You think this is a bad card?
I'm
Why?
going off my instincts because, from what it seems like, draw a card then discard doesn't seem like all that useful in terms of magic.
If you have any question, you can ask.
I know it's a water monster or a blue card or
Yeah,
whatever
it's
it's
a it's
called.
a blue card.
Uh, no evidence, no crime. What the hell?
That it's the flavor text. You know how
Oh,
vanilla monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh have flavor text?
yeah, they originally had flavor text.
Yeah, it's basically this.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with it's bad.
Okay, because you don't think drawing and discarding is good enough.
Yeah, no.
Okay, Mac. You are very wrong.
Hmm.
The card is
Let's see.
very powerful. Very powerful. It is currently in one of the most powerful decks in Modern. It is a draw engine. Because the thing about this card is it triggers with any player.
I
So
was all
if
I was
you
mostly
play
taking
your
a shot in
second
the dark.
spell, you draw a card and then
Oh
discard a
wait,
card.
now I see where this is going. Yeah, why is this not banned?
Uh, because there's worse cards that are legal. But
Oh
the
God.
card is very powerful where it sees play. It's a deck that cares about the graveyard. So sending cards to the graveyard is fantastic. Discarding it is fantastic. And since it triggers with both your opponent and yourself, it just connives a lot. And more importantly, it comes early into the board and it just starts get beating really fast. It becomes a 2-4, then a 3-5, and it just starts chipping away at that health really quickly if it's not dealt with
Well,
quickly.
this really is showing how much I know about Magic. Anyway,
No,
and
no, it's
usually,
fine. I mean, that's the whole point. You're a Yu-Gi-Oh player. You're not a Magic player, so this is fun because it'll be more fun as we go forward because you're gonna be like, okay, this card was good, so this one must be bad, that kind of deal. It'll be fun seeing how you're gonna see future cards that I'm gonna show you. To be honest, though, you're not too bad to think that this is not a good card. When the card first revealed, it kind of just flew over everyone's radar. No one really paid attention, and then people tested it out, and yeah, it turns out it's really good.
yeah, that
So
happens in Yu-Gi-Oh a lot too. Street Wraith.
Street Rate.
Strong. Not be blocked as long as the offender. Pay 2 life. Discard this card and draw. Hmm. See, here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
One, it looks like it is you need a lot of, I don't know, death, gray, whatever you would call it, black.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also the fact that it's making you pay life. Now, that's very normal in Yu-Gi-Oh! Paying life points is nothing for a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player nowadays.
Uh-huh.
Originally, we didn't do that a lot because we were very conservative with our life points. But with this, you Magic players are a bit more conservative because I know you don't have a lot of points to take hits with.
Oh no, no, we are not conservative. There is a very simple saying in Magic, which is life is a resource.
Oh, yeah, it's the same for Yu-Gi-Oh! Alright, getting all that, I would say that this card is good then.
One life is enough. Exactly, LEP. One life is enough. Or as some people will say, at one, I am immortal. You're saying
Or
this is
some people,
good.
well, I mean, here's the
What?
thing. In Yu-Gi-Oh, most any card that allows you to draw is good. Most cards.
You're saying this card is good. I'm gonna say that you got that right. I wouldn't necessarily call it good, but it does see play. There are decks that want it. More importantly, this is a card that, although it costs 5 to play, the reality is you don't even need to play it in a black deck because you just pay 2 life and cycle a card. You throw it away for another one. So basically, you just draw a card for free. But more importantly, there are 2 decks specifically that play a lot with this card, one of which just wants to. The entire strategy is to hurt themselves so that they can play powerful cards that do a lot of stuff if you're at low health. And the other one just wants a lot of creatures in the
On the
graveyard, and
field.
this is just a free
Oh.
creature for the graveyard. So yeah, you got it
Hmm.
right. Yay! This is a decent card. It's very good. Also sees a good amount of play in Commander because it's just again, you don't even need to play it. It's just a pay to life cycle, get a new card.
That's what I thought.
Good, you got that one right. Very right, and your explanation was also correct. So let's go to another one, to a classic.
Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt. Deal for you to any target. This is a spell, so deal 3 damage to any target. This is a very nerdy card. Okay.
This is nerdy.
I know this isn't like a Rengeki or anything, so
So for one red, you get to zap whatever you want for free.
the difference between Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Magic cards is the Magic cards actually have health so they actually can stay on board. While this looks like it can actually be useful, the problem I'm having is whether it's worth the resources. You know what? I'll say it's a good card, considering it's 3. If it was 1 or 2, then I would say no.
So is that your final answer? It's a good card.
Yes.
You are correct, Mech. This card is a meta-defining card. This
Yeah,
card
I see.
is so broken, it is so warping that current Wizards does not want to reprint it into standard anymore because it will completely change how a format. So modern, which is where this card sees the most play, for a very long time had what I would call the health check for any new creature that was introduced to the game, which was that does the creature have more than 3 health? If yes, it passes the check. If it doesn't, it dies to this.
That's what I thought.
Now the card, it's no longer sees as much play as it used to. This used to be like the premium removal and also burn spell, because you could also throw this at the face. But this used to be the most common form of removal in Modern. Better removal has been printed, so this is not as common, but it is still sees play in Burn. Sees play, for example, that Bird Advisor that we just saw, sees play in that deck. Probably the best burn spell ever printed.
What the fuck is this?
Ignore the Assassin Creed reference.
Why is there an Assassin's Creed reference in here?
They're doing a crossover, so this is gonna come out. This has already come out, but they're reprinting this for this Assassin's
Holy
Creed.
shit! They do the same thing with Yu-Gi-Oh with Konami.
Yeah, basically.
Take an extra turn after this. Take an extra turn after this one.
Yes.
I would say this is broken because always having an extra turn is. But wait. That cost is 3, right?
Yeah, it costs. So the way that works is you exile cards from your graveyard as an alternative, and from each one you exiled, you reduce the cost by 1. However, it only reduces the generic cost, which is the 8 up there. It will, at minimum, always cost 3 blue, and then 8 exiled cards.
I'll have to say this is bad then.
Final answer?
Because 8 is way too much resources to sacrifice. I don't know how big Magic decks are, but
Now, what if I were to tell you that when this card was revealed, a lot of people were losing their marbles?
then see, the first impression I had was that it's broken based off the ability to literally take an extra turn.
But then people got to play it, and they realized that in reality, the card is way too expensive.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought.
And to be fair, though, it is not the 8 that is the problem. It's
the 3.
The 3 blue, it's kind of funny in Magic because you would think that paying 3 of the same color would be actually kind of easy. But turns out most decks are multicolored. They have an easier time paying multiple colors, but paying only 1 gets a little bit more scratchy. Basically, for 11, you better win the game if you're paying that much. This could win you the game, but it also just doesn't. It gives you an extra turn when extra turns are powerful, but they're not as powerful as people make it out to be, because at the end of the day, you do need to do something in your extra turn, and if you're not winning, then what's the point? You might as well just play something better that wins you the game.
Yeah, there's a similar card that it's not really cost, it's just at the point where if you have that many cards, basically it's a card for the 6 Samurai where if they have, I think it was either 5 or 6 monsters on the field, skip your opponent's next turn.
Yeah.
But you don't really run it because while they are good at filling up the field, at that point you basically would have won.
Yeah, it's a win more card. Like, you're already winning. You might as well just kill them instead of making another turn. Now, this does see a little bit of play in Pioneer. Not every single copy is like 1 or 2 copies. And it's a very like specific deck that sees play. But outside of Pioneer, and I did say Pioneer, I wouldn't be counting. It doesn't really see any play. It's just so you understand, there was like 3 blue cards in the set that it came out that had Delve. 2 of them got banned, this one did not. Now, it's not bad. Taking an extra turn is still very powerful in Magic, but there are way better options in terms of taking an extra turn.
Yeah, that's what I mostly thought. Basically, it's to the point where you you could spend the resources on something less and get something better out of it, basically.
Basically, there are cheaper sayings that do a lot more than this. There we go. You got that right. Nice. And you got it right exactly as to why it was bad. So now I'm going to show you one that is going to be probably a little bit more complicated, but you know, if you have some difficulty, I can explain to you. There we go.
Stone Soldier attack the moon.
I remember that.
That's an actual Yu-Gi-Oh card now. Attack the moon.
Oh yeah, they did a reference to that. Yes.
Non-basic lands are mountains. What the hell is a non-basic land?
Basically, there are 5 basic lands in the entire game, which is mountains, forests, islands, plains, and swamps. So each one for each color, and then everything else is non-basic, which is like over 200 and something lands, probably more than that.
Let me think.
So basically, if you have, let's say you have a land that gives you blue and white, this enchantment makes it so it can no longer give you blue and white. Instead, it just gives you red.
Oh.
Yeah. It transforms the land. Or for example, let's say you have a land that has an ability.
So it gives you something
It
that
loses
you
the
don't
ability.
want. Oh, this is like skill drain. Wonderful. Okay, or DNA surgery, I guess, would be closer to it. Considering all I know about Yu-Gi-Oh, I would have to say this is good. The 2 costs, it seems fine from what I can tell. But yeah, there's a skull on the moon. The artwork is pretty, I guess.
The artwork
Anyway,
is very pretty. So final answer, this is good. Because
yeah.
it shuts down the... Because it works like skill drain, essentially. Where it makes everything loses their ability.
Yeah.
You are correct, Mac. This card is bananas. This card can single-handedly just make a player cry. Because suddenly now they can't play Magic. When you said skill drain, I actually nodded. I was like, yep, that skill drain is basically it. You can't play the game anymore. Right now, there are so many non-basics in a lot of formats that there are specific decks, kind of like non-skill drain. There are decks that literally just run this main deck, and they just run over every single greedy deck that plays non-basics. And it's just funny. This card is bananas if these play normally in side decks, but some decks even run it main deck because they already know they're going to be facing those type of decks. There are actual skill drain effects, but this is skill drain for lands, so none of those lands will do anything now. It's a very annoying card to deal with.
Basically it cuts off all of your resources.
Yeah, the worst part even is that let's imagine that you do have a way to actually blow this up or to get out of the field. The problem is if you don't have the lands to give you the colors you need to play those spells, you still can't play them. So it really is a very frustrating card because it kind of protects itself. Okay, nice. Let's show you a next one. This one you know. I'm sure you know this card. You probably heard about it.
No, oh my god, really?
Yeah.
The One Ring.
The one and only. The
Now
Lord
someone
of the
draw
Rings.
Jorgi as Gollum.
God. The One Ring, the one and only. From the crossover.
When the One Ring enters battle, if you cast it, you gain protection from everything until it. So basically, you turn invisible. At the beginning of your keep, you lose 1 health for each burden counter on the One Ring. Of course, so it's driving you crazy and slowly sucking your life away.
Yeah.
Putting a burden counter on the ring can draw a card for each burden counter on the ring.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck?
So is the One Ring powerful, or is it a lie?
See, here's the thing. We technically, from what I know, we have something kind of similar, but it doesn't go as far. It's called Shard of Greed, where basically each turn that you draw a card in your draw phase, you get a counter to it, and it can only go up to 2, then you activate its effect and it gets off. But I don't know if you can remove this card from the field is the problem to stop it.
Are you confused with Indestructible?
Oh, Indestructible. Oh, I didn't see that actually. Okay, never mind. This is busted as hell.
Okay. I thought you noticed the Indestructible.
No, I did not notice that little text.
So final answer. It's broken, you're saying.
Yes.
Why?
Because for each counter you get to draw a card. That is... Getting advantages card is always bullshit in Yu-Gi-Oh! So obviously it's the same here for this.
Well, Mac. You are not wrong. This card is absolutely bananas. It is this card is way too expensive right now because it sees play basically everywhere that's legal. There
Oh,
are
so now it's
entire decks built around it. It is just insane. More so because one, it's indestructible, so it's really hard to get rid of. Two, it
Mhm.
gives you protection, which is also stupid because for paying 4 mana in a lot of formats is already a lot of mana. So
Mhm.
paying 4 mana to just draw a card and lose 1 life seems pretty bad. But the fact that you gain protection for an entire turn, it's like, oh, I guess I don't actually skip my turn because you can't do shit to me right now until my next turn. And
What the
that
hell are some of these cards?
so basically, before your opponent can even interact with you again, you get to draw at minimum 3 cards.
The fuck?
And you can play with 4 of them in your deck.
What the hell?
So
Is that the four
sometimes
number?
these decks just play the One Ring, and then next turn the One Ring, and then the One, and they just keep doing that over and over again. It's
Dear Lord.
stupid. It's a stupid card. A lot of people are not very happy about the card because a lot of people didn't like the changes it brought to some of the formats. Now, the formats have stabilized and it doesn't see as much play as it did when it first came out because people adapted and they started playing with cards that can deal with it. But when it first came out and people were like playing it everywhere, people were so mad because they did not like the fact that a crossover card was this overpowered.
Yeah, I can understand. Usually any of the crossover or like reference cards in Yu-Gi-Oh are never this good.
Yeah, they really pushed this card because it was the One Ring and they wanted to make it feel like powerful. And on one side, I kind of get it. It does feel flavorful that it is this broken, but at the same time, it does feel bad that it's
Well,
this
take a look.
busted.
What the hell is that? Walking Ballista?
Yep.
This enters the battlefield with X+1/+1 on counter. Put +1 on Walking Ballista. Remove a +1/+1 counter from Walking Ballista. It deals 1 damage to any target. What the hell is this thing?
So what is confusing you?
Well, for one, it looks like the worst designed robot ever.
Uh, Funny you would say that. I think that is the intention. It's basically, I believe the lore for this is that there is like a fair of inventors, and this is just one of the weird inventions that is in that fair.
Okay, I have to say this looks bad.
Why?
One, it just seems to be a spell or equipment, or
It is a creature. It says a creature there.
is a creature.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I have 0 health, so it's probably gonna die before it uses anything. But it has a +1/+1. But
So in Magic, 0, if a creature has 0, it just dies. It goes to the graveyard.
okay, so yeah, this thing is bad.
You say the final answer is it's bad?
Yes.
Well, Mech, when it first was revealed, not that many people cared about it. It was kind of looks just a mediocre card. And now it's part of Infinite Combos.
Oh, wonderful.
Because
I was worried about that.
I kind of get why you say that. Again, when it first came out, not that many people cared, me included. I was playing Magic at the time when this card was revealed and didn't really look at the card. So the XX means that to play this card, you have to pay the same amount for each X. So for example, you can pay 0 and it comes down as a 0/0 and immediately dies. Or you can pay 2, so 1 for each X, and it
Oh,
comes
so that's what's going.
it
That's
comes
what it
down
was.
as a 1/1. Or you can pay 4 and it comes down as a 2/2, then 6 for 3/3, 8 for 4/4, etc. And then you can pay 4 to add a counter. Now, all of that is very fun and all, but the real part that makes this card just completely bananas is the last part, the remove a +1 to deal a damage anywhere. The fact that that has no cost you don't have to pay mana to use that means that if you have any cards that can cheat counters into it, you can just create some very funny gameplay where you actually just play this as a 1/1 for 2 mana, and then you just put counters on it through other abilities, and it starts pinging everything that
Okay,
exists.
when you told me that you could just put resources into this thing, I'm like, yeah, that's That's pretty, yeah.
As for the infinite combo that exists, so there is a card, it's called Heliod, and its effect is whenever you gain life, you can put a +1/+1 counter anywhere you want. And you can give lifelink to this. Lifelink is whenever it deals damage, you gain that much life. So what you do is, you give this lifelink, you have Heliod on the board, and then you remove a counter, deal damage anywhere you want. Because it dealt damage, you gain 1 life, put a counter in there, then remove one, deal another, gain a life, put a counter here, and it creates this infinite loop where you can just keep dealing damage and putting counters on it.
Oh, wonderful.
So the card is very powerful. It sees play in a lot of formats. Very powerful in Commander, but more importantly, very powerful in Modern too. And here's the thing: you can just some decks just play this as a mana dumper, so they play with a lot of mana and they just go pump this thing with like God knows how much mana and just blow the opponent up. So yeah,
What
this
the
card is
hell?
busted. Where is it?
Rancor.
Yes.
At least it's not a Star Wars reference.
You wanna read it?
Enchanted creature, enchantment, aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has trample. When Rancor is put into the graveyard from the mount, return Rancor to its owner's hand.
So I think the best comparison in terms of what this type of card is like the equipments in Yu-Gi-Oh, which are spells and you just attach them
You
to
mean, yeah, equip cards.
equip
Equip
cards.
spells.
It's basically similar. You attach this to a creature as you play it, and then when the creature dies, both of them go to the graveyard. Although in this case, it says in the card that it goes back to your hand.
It does get +2 on trample, which is basically piercing and
Yeah.
extra damage. It's a little bit like Horn of the Unicorn, and that goes back to your hand, but Unicorn goes back to the top of your deck. We actually had to, a card had to get banned when it created an infinite loop for that.
I could see how infinite loops could be bannable.
If I remember, there was Butterfly Knife Elma and Geofried the Iron Knight. Geofried has basically the ability of you cannot, any equip card that equips to it is automatically destroyed. And basically,
Oh, I see
if
how it's going.
Butterfly Elma, yeah, if Butterfly Elma is in the graveyard, it returns to your hand.
Oh god.
And there used to be a thing where basically spellcaster players could get spell counters every time because they
Yeah.
get spell counters every time they activate a spell card. So.
Basically, they storm off.
But for this, but it also has a cost of 1 green, so unlike with Yu-Gi-Oh, so I'll say it's bad.
Bad because it has a cost, unlike in Yu-Gi-Oh, where you can just go infinite.
Yeah, where you can just go infinite with it.
Well, Mech, this card. So let me talk to you about auras. So
Okay, here we
auras
go
in
again.
Magic are pretty shit. Nobody likes auras except for the weird people, because when you attach something to a creature like an aura and the creature dies, you lose 2 resources for 1.
Oh
Well,
wow.
turns out that when that 1 resource comes back to your hand, it only costs 1. It doesn't really matter what the resource does. What matters is it comes back and can enable a lot of weird stuff. So,
Oh.
this card is very powerful, and I believe it has seen play every time it has been legal.
Oh wow.
Sometimes it has played more than others, obviously, especially back then it saw more play than it does today. But it is still, I believe it still sees modern play in Bubbles, if Bubbles is still a deck. I don't know if that's still a deck, might not be. But the relevant part is that it comes back to the graveyard. So there are certain cards that are like whenever you play an enchantment, draw a card. With those kind of cards, this enables, it basically can become a draw engine because this is a card that you will never lose unless the only time you can lose this is if they kill the creature as you are trying to attach to it. So that's the only time, the only window they have to get rid of this card. Outside of that, this card is always in their hand. So any like enchantment matter like creatures that they can have will always be enabled by this card, which is what makes it such a powerful card.
Hmm.
Also like the fact that it only costs 1 mana. The trample is relevant because it does see more play in like more Voltron decks, which are basically put everything on 1 creature and just smack your opponent until they die.
Oh.
And the trample kind of helps go through blockers. But the 1 mana and the fact that it keeps coming back makes this card a classic card that showcases the power of having a resource that never goes away. So,
See, nowadays in Yu-Gi-Oh, most decks do not care about equip cards, except for like ones that are specifically about equip cards.
let's move on to the next one.
Let's see what we got here. Oh, actually has somewhat of a cool design, except for the face. Combustible gear hunk. Well, I do like ancient gear, so we'll see. Holy shit! When it enters the battlefield, target your opponent may have you draw 3 cards. If the player doesn't, you'll mill 3 cards. Then combustible gear does damage to that player equal to the amount of mana value of those cards. What the hell am I? I can see where it's going. It's either they take damage for not letting you have the
The
3 cards.
yeah, or you get the 3 cards.
Yeah, the only thing that makes me think it might be kind of bad is that cost right there, but 4 doesn't seem so bad, and the 2 actually seems really good, so I'm gonna say this is actually really good. Also because every Yu-Gi-Oh! Burn decks aren't the best unless they really burn you, but this could probably burn someone for a lot, honestly.
So this card is a perfect example, textbook example of why giving your opponent choices is not a good idea.
Ah, that old thing. Yeah, that's a thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Too.
You're very right. If this card just milled the top 3 cards of your deck and dealt a total amount of damage to them, it probably would see a good amount of play. But the reality is, this will never do what you actually want it to do. Because if you want to mill to deal the damage, your opponent is just going to tell you to draw the cards. And if you want to draw the cards, your opponent is just going to tell you to mill the cards. So that is kind of the problem that this card has. It's not a good card, unfortunately. I remember this because I got it when I when I played the set. This was one of the cards that I got from the opening packs, and I played it in my commander, and it never did what you wanted to do. It always did the opposite of what you wanted to do. It is true that sometimes, yes, it has the potential to just slap people across the face with the damage, but again, you're leaving that to your opponent. If they are afraid of dying from damage, it's just going to tell you to draw the cards. Again, it's that, as you said, Yu-Gi-Oh! Also has it. It's never a good idea to give your opponent the choice. Sometimes there are cards that can kind of work because they're basically just pick your poison, but this is not one of those cases.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It was pick your poison for the most part.
Yeah,
But it doesn't seem
but
to be
this
that.
isn't the case because, first of all, this is another situation. You did mention the cost, the cost of the card. 6 mana is a lot for this effect. For 6 mana, generally you need to play something that just wins you on the spot. And again, if this card did either of those individually without there being an option, it would be very good. Probably would see a good amount of play. But the fact that it has the option just makes this unplayable.
Interesting. What the hell is this? Rival and Riches. 1 black and 4.
Yeah.
When a creature and opponent's control dies, create a colorless treasure token with whatever that is. Sacrifice this artifact. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game.
So treasures are basically artifacts that you tap, you sack them, and they give you mana for that turn.
I'm gonna say this card is bad.
Why would you say that?
Because it's a win condition card.
Oh.
In Yu-Gi-Oh! We have like a few of those. Those usually aren't played unless they're like dedicated to it, and they usually aren't good. Like Spirit Board, where you have to get a certain 5.
You have to
A
get the
certain 5.
final.
Yeah, it originally said the word death, but
Oh yeah, I got science there, you're right.
The funny thing is, Exodia is now actually playable. There's actually a man in current tournaments that has found a way to get Exodia out.
I mean, it used to be, way back in the day, it used to be playable too. With like Sagan and the Witch, I believe.
And the Witch of the Black Forest. Yeah, it's mostly because you would mostly focus on draw cards and other cards that basically bring him into your hand.
So you're saying that this is a bad card because it's a win the game card, and those tend to be pretty bad.
Yeah, for the most part.
You are absolutely correct, and your explanation is also on point. This card, now I don't know about Pioneer. Maybe in Pioneer sees some play or saw some play at a certain point, but standard, modern, like, even in Commander, this card is pretty bad. And I already know there's going to be people who are going to hate me because this card is actually not very cheap. I mean, for Magic cards, probably on the fine cost because it's a very popular card for Commander because Commander has a lot of casuals, has a lot of casual play, and you know, Commander is a multiplayer, so you get triple the creatures dying from your opponents. But as you said, it's a win condition, and Try to guess what happens if you play a card like this against 3 people. They are not gonna be very happy with you, and they will kill you immediately. Yeah, this card is not very good, mostly because you have to wait an entire turn for it to actually do something. So you play this, and essentially does nothing, right? You're paying 5 for an enchantment that doesn't really impact the board. You need creatures of your opponents to die, which means you need to apply extra resources by killing your opponent's creatures, which would be really funny if your opponent doesn't have creatures because they're a control deck who just
Yeah.
plays spells and counters your stuff. And in addition to that, you have to make like a full turn of you having 10 treasures for you to win, which there's a lot of ways to blow up enchantments. There's a lot of ways to blow up treasures and artifacts. Generally, like, it just results in you dying if you play this. Because,
Yeah, this is what usually happens with cards like this. Like, there's Final Countdown, which basically you pay 2,000 life points, and in 20 turns you automatically win the duel. But
20
usually,
turns.
yeah, exactly. You, especially now in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, that's not happening.
Yeah, yeah. Even in Magic, 20 turns is like, there are certain decks that could really pull it off, but 20 turns is like too much in Magic.
But yeah, most win conditions is your opponent has to not do anything to stop it in order for you to win.
Basically. Want to read it?
What's the Angel of Suffering.
Suffer.
Creature, Nightmare Angel. Flying. If damage would be dealt to you, prevent the damage and mill twice that amount of cards. Oh, so it's a fallen angel. 3 and 2 black. Hmm. Hmm. See, here's the thing with this. If damage is dealt to you in any such way, but usually wouldn't they have to get first through your monsters unless they use trample?
So in right, we didn't talk about this. So in Yu-Gi-Oh, you can only attack your opponent if they don't have monsters. Otherwise, you have to attack the monsters. In Magic, the way it works is you declare attackers, so you choose who's attacking, and you attack the player, the opponent, and then the opponent chooses which of their creatures blocks which attackers.
Ah.
Let's say that you put this on the board and your opponent attacks you. You can just choose to not block and you take all the damage and then you mill twice that many cards.
Considering that, I would say it's a good card. Because milling is usually actually kind of good unless you're dealing against a deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! That is actively wanting you to mill. Because milling allows you to basically see what cards you have in your, I guess, I don't know what it's called in Magic, but we have the graveyard. But also milling allows you, basically shortens the amount of decks you have.
The graveyard matters a lot in Magic too. It's basically a second resource. Well, Mac, I'm sorry to tell you, this card is bad.
Oh, okay.
This card is not very good. Mostly because, first
The
of all,
cost.
it costs 5, which is a lot. And perhaps even more importantly, it's that free toughness there that really just kills the card, man. Remember when I talked about Lightning Bolt and how there was at a time a check of does it have more than 3 health? Well, it's not just for Lightning Bolt. There are a lot of cards. 3 is like a number, a magic number in Magic. There's a lot of cards that just deal 3 damage or kill stuff that has free health or gives -3/-3. So generally having less than 3 health, and if you're expensive, you better have a very powerful effect or you're just gonna die and do nothing. And that's kind of the problem this card has. It just dies and doesn't do anything. Removal in Magic is very common. In Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not as common because you can just kill it with better monsters. But because in Magic, you can't really fight monsters, creatures, you have to attack and then they have to block with it. Removal is like almost every deck has removal. There are infinite combos with this card, obviously, because you can just deal damage to yourself to mill yourself to do dumb shit. But there's just better options. If you want to mill, there are better options. There are cheaper.
Oh, okay.
Which, speaking of removal, let's look at a removal spell now. What do you think about this one? Funnily enough, would not kill that angel.
Doomblade. Destroy target that's a non-black. This feels like it's a good card in instant. But for every other thing you're facing, unless you're facing against a black deck, then you're not.
So I don't know if
anything.
you know what instant means. We actually didn't talk about that, but
No, you didn't.
basically, instant means you can play it whenever. You can play it in your opponent's turn, basically from hand. Opponent passes the turn, and you go before you pass the turn, kill your creature.
Oh, so you can just use this whenever.
Yeah. You can use it
So it's
whenever.
like a quick. Yeah, it's like a quick play spell.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say this card is good.
So here's a story. It's no longer as frequent because a lot of better removal has come out, but there used to be a saying whenever a new creature came out that had a lot of text, which was, it dies to Doomblade. Where there was a time where this card was one of the most efficient removals in like the formats that it played, and to the point where there was a saying of, if it dies to Doomblade. New creature comes out, everyone is hyped, and then people just go, are you hyped? It just dies to Doomblade.
Oh yeah, that's a meme in the community then.
Yeah, it's no longer as much of a meme because the card has been power
Yeah, it's been
crept.
power crypt.
There
Yeah.
are much more efficient removal nowadays. The destroy non-black creature, in particular, the non-black is probably what sets back the most. Nowadays, most removal do not have these conditions. They're just like kill creature. It doesn't matter what they are. But for a very long time, this was like considered to be a premium removal, and a lot of people loved it. So yeah, it was good. It was good during its time.
This does remind me of a bit of cards like Warrior Elimination, where there's basically cards that target just types of monsters saying destroy all of this type of monster.
Oh
And
yeah,
Warrior
yeah.
Elimination was a little bit big for a little while because Warrior cards they're such a big group.
So here's a card that changed. This card is stupid, but here's the card. This card resulted in a rule change
Oh, it's
in
one of those
Magic.
cards.
This card
At the beginning
resulted
of
in a
if you
rule
have
change.
100 more, you win the what the fuck? Like I get it's supposed to be a joke card, but they don't realize when this kind of thing comes out.
This
I'm guessing
card.
I think I know what you're gonna say. That it changed the cap of cards you can have in a deck.
So
There's something I will say. There's something similar that happened in Yu-Gi-Oh, where two guys just brought a giant deck. There's actually a picture of it where they would just put shuffle cards, so they would just shuffle the gigantic deck. So much so that the judges just basically made a new rule that you can only have like
60
I think at the
card.
time it was 60 cards. There
Yeah.
originally there was 80, then it was put to 60.
Yeah. So in Magic, there is technically no limit number. But the rule was that previously there was no restriction. You can just play with whatever size you want. It was not recommended because you make your deck more inconsistent, but this card, I want to say when it came out, but you know, with this card in the pool, eventually someone had the bright idea to try it out. And it sometimes worked, but it was very difficult to shuffle and required two people to shuffle the deck.
Yeah, that's similar to what we
And
just
they
had.
essentially added a rule that said your deck can only be as big as you can shuffle it. So the moment you can't the moment you can't shuffle the deck by yourself, the deck is illegal. But if you can shuffle it, it doesn't matter how many cards it has. So if you're a very big person with very big hands, your deck can be as many cards as you want. Also, I guess you're gonna say this card is bad.
Yeah.
It is bad. But it did see some meme play because obviously people will try it. And it resulted in a rule change. It's a bad card. It doesn't see any play. Especially after that rule change. That rule change, I'm pretty sure, made this card unplayable. Because your deck literally is illegal if you try it. Here's the next one.
Oh boy. Brando the Sovereign. If you have 40 or more life, you win the game. How much life do you start out with?
You start out with 20 life, except Commander, where you start at 40.
Okay, yeah, this is a bad card.
But why? If you play this in Commander, you just have to wait a turn and you win the game.
Listen, in any other format besides that, unless you have constant cards giving you life, then no, it's not working out.
I'll be honest, even if you have cards that give you life, this card is shit.
Exactly.
Now I'm gonna get a lot of hatred for this. This card is bad because there's a lot of people that like the card because it sees. So it doesn't see any play in Standard, doesn't see any play in any other format, but it does see play in Commander because you start at 40. You're already there. You just need to play it. But as we talked with the other one, if you play this, it has to do a full round of 3 other players, and they're not gonna be very happy about you playing this. So they're gonna remove it. They're gonna beat you up so that you don't have 40 life. And I'll say this as someone who plays with a life gain deck in Commander. My deck gains a lot of life to a ridiculous level. And even I don't play this card because it just doesn't do anything. 6 mana, you play it, everyone hates you on the table, and now you're like the target, and everyone's gonna try and smack you down. The only thing this card really does for you is just puts a target on your head.
I mean, there are several monsters that literally have a win condition. I forget what her name is. She's like Gorgon, the
Ah,
serpent goddess.
I used
Or
to play
basically,
that card.
you need a specific card in order to summon it, even
Yeah,
before
I
that.
think
So
the
it's
opponent has to have poison count, or venom counters, was it? Something like
yeah,
that?
and if I remember correctly, it also involves Venenonat,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
king
yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah,
serpents.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I used to play that deck.
why?
Because I like alternative conditions. It was fun.
You just like snake girls. That's the only
That is
thing.
also true. Snake Girls. Actually, I think that was the case. I saw the art and was like, I have to make this deck. For my queen.
Because that's the only card. That's the only deck besides like reptilians that involves snake girls.
My deck was a reptilian deck with that card. Next one is a card that I have history. I opened this card in a
Okay.
pack.
What the hell am I looking?
The monkey.
A monkey Ragnar the Nimble Pilfer. Ragnaveld. When Ragnaveld deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token, then exile the top card of the player's library. Is that what you call your deck?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Until the end, you may cast that card. Until the end, you may cast that card. Cast.
You can play the card.
Oh, so you can just play it no matter what.
You still have to pay for it if it has a
Oh,
cost.
I'll say this is a good card. Is the ability to activate no matter what.
To
Like
activate. What?
to activate.
Oh,
You know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean. We call it activation in Yu-Gi-Oh.
yeah. Okay, okay. So final answer, this is good.
Yeah,
Well, Mick, I'm gonna tell you a story.
this
So,
always starts with a story.
last year, I came back to Magic. I had been on a big break from Magic, stopped playing it for a very long time. In the store, there was like this pre-release box of Modern Horizons, and I bought the little box, and I opened it in the store, and there was this card there. And I read it, and I was reading it out loud, very confused, because I was back into the game, so I didn't really know what was new, what was in the set. And I read the card, and I remember saying out loud, where's the downside of this card? This card is one of the most disgusting cards to have ever been created in Magic. I hate this card. I hate that this card exists. This card has completely destroyed Modern, in my opinion. I know people will hate me for that, but there's also a lot of people that hate this card because this is a meta warping card. There's right now in Modern Ragavan check, which is, do you have the removal for the Ragavan turn 1? If you don't, Ragavan is just gonna run you down because it's gonna exile you cards, it's gonna create treasures, it's gonna ramp up the opponent, gonna give them extra mana, and it's just gonna keep hitting you. The dash
Basically,
is also a very powerful effect because it's never a dead draw. Even if you draw it later on, you can still just dash it in just for that quick, let me check at the top, maybe I can get an extra resource. It's
yeah,
so,
that's all the resources it can give you all at once.
yeah, like a 1 mana that gives you so much resource because it gives you the treasure. It gives you an extra card that you can potentially play. So yeah, this card is, I hate the card. I hate that this card exists. It got to the point where I play Magic Arena right now, and if anyone drops me on turn 1, I just surrender. I don't want to play the game. I just do not want to play because I already know what the gameplay is going to be. They're going to play this shit on turn 1. I'm going to play a creature to block it, and they're just going to bolt it or remove it out of the way and then just hit me and exile my shit. And I'm like, nah, I don't want this gameplay. I'm gonna play Hearthstone. It is banned in Legacy though, which is the much stronger format and older format. It's banned there because yeah, turn 1 Ragavan when you have a bunch of counters in hand that you can play without paying their cost is kind of insane. So they had to remove it.
Mental misstep.
It's the first counter spell we have here.
Oh, a counter spell.
One thing
Can be
to
paid with
note,
either.
spells in Magic is everything that's not a land. So creature is a spell.
Oh, you're basically a summoner. Yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah, you're
similar
a
with
summoner.
Yu-Gi-Oh.
You're summoning the creature, so it's still a spell. Once it's
Yeah,
on the
so
board, it's a creature, but while it's in your hand, it's a spell, and while you're casting it, it's a spell.
yeah, all these card games are all about summoning creatures anyway.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, yeah.
your first mistake was thinking I would let you live long enough to make a second.
I
That's
like how
actually a
you're
pretty good line.
yeah, I like how you're reading the flavor text. Anyway, though,
Anyway,
back to the
I will
card.
say this is a good card, considering you told me it was a counter spell.
But it only counters cards that cost 1 mana. It's very
Oh, then
specific.
never mind.
You not read the card?
I did read the card. I
You
just didn't realize.
you read the
I
flavor
I
text
I
before you read the
misunderstood
card.
what it's. I misunderstood what it meant by convert what mana cost.
So it counters only spells that cost 1 mana. So for example, it can
Yeah.
counter itself because it costs 1. It does have that little text there where you can pay 2 life instead of paying its mana cost, though. Technically, you can pay this for free if you spend 2 life.
Or no, I think it's bad now, considering you said it's only one cost. But if it was more than that, then yeah, because some of the spells you showed me. Well, actually, wouldn't didn't that lightning bolt only cost one?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, it's good then.
But why? It's only 1 mana spells that it counters.
Because most of the spells you showed me were one mana spells.
Intriguing. I wonder if there's a correlation to that. So, allow me to tell you a story back when this was seeing play, where on the first turn, someone played, I don't remember what they played, but they played a card that cost 1, and the opponent played Mental Misstep. To which then the other one played their own Mental Misstep to counter the Mental Misstep. To which then the other one played another one on top of it to counter the other Mental Misstep.
Good lord.
This card is banned everywhere except Commander. The card is bananas, as you said. A lot of the best spells, especially older formats, are 1 mana spells anyway, and a lot of the decks are built towards that first turn. And essentially, this card had to be banned because every first turn was just a war of mental missteps. Whoever had the most mental missteps in their hand won the game. The other part that was just annoying about the card is like you don't need to be playing blue to play this card. You can just be playing any color and just play this card because again, you can just pay 2 life for free to get it for free. So every deck just run 4 of them in main deck. Yeah, this card is bananas. But here's another one. This one's a very old card. Necropotence.
Skip your draw phase. When you discard a card, exile the card from your graveyard. Pay 1 life, exile the top of your card, drop this card into your hand at the beginning of your next end phase. So this is just all about milling your deck.
No. So you pay 1 life and you exile the top card of your library, and then your next end step, you put those cards in your hand. You do have to discard them because you're at your end step. So if you have more than 7 cards, you have to discard until you have 7. You're basically delay draw, right? You draw it at the end of the turn.
Okay, so yeah, this is busted because I know a card similar like this to Yu-Gi-Oh that's banned.
Yeah,
Where it's
this.
basically the whole thing is during your standby phase, you have to draw until you have 4 cards in your hand. And during, I don't remember which phase it was, you have to discard them. Which basically what it was a continuous card, so basically all they would do is just get rid of that card before it had to do its resolve.
Yeah, this card
Effect.
is bananas because you have 20 life, which means you have a lot of life to spend for this card. Sure, you do discard the cards at the end, but at the end of the day, you just want very specific cards. That's to say, like, who cares if you get the cards you discarded or exiled? You just keep the cards you actually want and you get rid of the ones you don't need. You're drawing like 19 cards. It's very powerful. It's insane. It's basically a combo enabler because like you just draw until you find the pieces you want. That's basically it. It's a very powerful card, very busted. Yeah, this one you don't kill it, you just keep it on the board so that you can draw even more cards. It's a very funny card. Okay then, Mech. I have a card for you
Okay.
now. This card
Oh, wonderful.
is very special for me. I am curious to see what you think about it.
A strange, that creature looks in pain and it looks like it doesn't want to be alive.
Take me out of my misery.
It looks like it's not supposed to have a neck, like someone just fused the head of a rhino to the rest of the body of an elephant.
It is a very big rhino.
Rhinos aren't supposed to have necks that long.
I know. Well, don't question. It's an alternative reality.
An alternative reality I don't want to live in. Anyway, let's see.
This is the first multicolor I'm showing you. Actually, I think.
Yes, it is.
Which is
It has
surprising.
light. It is, I guess, yellow, black, and green.
Yeah, it's 3
What
colors.
the- Yeah, trample. When a CJ enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 3 health and you gain 3 health. What the hell?
Yeah, it enters and drain for free.
See, I don't know much about Magic, but I know people make decks usually around one material or two, but usually never three. So I
Oh,
have
it's
to
the
say,
cost. Okay, yeah.
yeah, so I have to say this is bad then.
This is bad because it costs 3 specific.
Here's the thing, in Yu-Gi-Oh, when something costs something very specific, it's usually unplayable. Like, even if the effect is very good, it's more than likely you're never gonna get it off.
To be fair, that's kind of the same in Magic. The more specific it is, the harder it is. Although mana bases have gotten better over time, so now it's relatively easier to play multiple colors.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's a bad.
Well, Mech, this card is meta warping card.
I see.
Do not ask me why. I think it's because the meta at the time was very specific. But I played with this card in a standard. Somehow this saw some play in modern. It's hard to explain why this card is powerful. The drain 3 life is relevant. It is basically a swing of 6 life because they lose 3, but you gain 3. So it's this massive swing when it enters. It is a 4/5 for 4, so it has a bigger butt for its body than it
Yeah.
should. The trample is actually more relevant than people think because you can't really jump block it with tokens. You have to actually kill it somehow. This con was very powerful and it legitimately just warped the entire format. It saw some play in modern. It's such a meme card too because there is a video on YouTube where a guy basically made a modern deck where they played with 4 copies of this. And every other card that's not a land in their deck was a clone. So a card that just enters the
God.
battlefield as a copy of a card you already is in the battlefield.
Okay,
So basically they
perfect.
played with like a 20-something Rhino deck, and they won just by playing Rhino after Rhino because of that life swing. It was
Just running over them.
just so stupid. It was so hilarious. But it's powerful in a very subtle way. So yeah, this card is pretty good. So let's go to the next one. Then the second multicolor I'm going to show you now.
Why did you play this for some reason?
I don't know.
Aurora's Fury. Deal X damage divided at your chosen amount of target creatures or players. Tap each creature deals damage this time. Players deal damage this way cannot cast non-creature spells this turn. Okay, yeah, this is busted.
Why?
Well, why do you think, Jorgie? Why do you think you can't cast anything else but monsters?
So final version, it's busted because of the
Because it anytime you're giving your opponent a limitation, if it's a very broad limitation in any card game, then yeah, it's busted.
Well, Mech, a lot of people agreed with you. When this card first came out, there was so much hype for it. Everyone was so happy. It's gonna be busted. It's gonna break the format. I bought 4 copies of the shitty card for $30 each back then. Because
$30, dear God.
I played it. At the time, I was playing competitively, so I had to have the deck. And turns out the craft is crap. So here's the thing: the card is powerful in a vacuum. In a vacuum, what you said is correct. It is very powerful to not let your opponents cast non-creatures. Basically, just you can only play creatures. The problem is, in practice, it doesn't work out that way. So here's the way you have to think about it. The only decks that you really want to stop them from casting non-creature spells are control decks. Control decks already play counter spells. So let's say you build a board and then you pass, and then at the start of their turn you just go RLS for your face so that you can't cast your board clear. And they just go counter and they just proceed to play the game normally. Or the other one, which is the one where you tap the creatures of the enemy and all that. While that is also sounds like a very fun mode, you can also just play 4 and destroy the enemy's creatures because most rafts cost 4 mana. So like in a vacuum, the card looks really powerful. It does a lot of stuff and it should be powerful, but the reality is in practice it just doesn't work because the way decks function make this card just not work that well. So yeah, this card is not good, but you're not at fault. This card was very hyped when it was revealed. Everyone was losing their minds. This card was gonna destroy the format. Everything was going to be resolving around it. Moving on to the next one.
Sylvan Library.
Can
At the
you
beginning
read
of your draw phase, you may add 2 additional cards. If you do, choose the cards in your hand. Draw on this turn. Cards pay life or put the cards on. Okay, yeah, sure. It's definitely not broken, Chorgy.
So, do you at least understand what the card does? Because a lot of people get confused with what the text says because it's worded a little bit weirdly.
It basically gives you 2 extra cards.
So you're saying this card is broken
Yes.
because it draws cards.
Yes, because it gives you advantage.
You are very correct.
In Yu-Gi-Oh, we just call it card advantage because that's
There,
basically what it is.
this card only has one mode for me, which is I'm gonna pay 8 life at every single turn to draw 2 extra cards. But this card is a very powerful card, is a staple in Commander. Lots of people play it. Unfortunately, a lot of people do not play it as it should be, which is you pay the 8 life every single time. But the card, yeah, it's insane. I have legitimately won games where I just every single turn I paid 8 life. I remember winning that game at like 2 health. And I was like, who cares? I won because 10 more cards than you guys.
Yeah, so you're spoiled for choice now.
Exactly. I have all the choices now and I could just overrun everyone. Yeah, the card is bananas. Moving on to the next one, which is a very fun card. I remember seeing this card. It's a funny card and I wanted to show you because it's funny
Master
cards.
of Cruelties. It looks like some sort of demon. Honestly, it looks more like a Warhammer demon.
It is
The
a demon.
first strike, Death Touch. Master of Cruelties can only attack alone. When the Master of Cruelties attacks a player, it isn't blocked. That player's total life becomes 1. Master of Cruelties assigns no combat damage. Is this combat? What the hell?
So in practice, what this means is the card can only attack alone, so you can't attack it with it and multiple creatures.
And you can't block it.
You can block it, but it has first strike and death touch. So first strike means it always deals its damage before other creature does its own. But death touch means that whenever this deals damage to a creature, it just kills it.
Instantly kills it.
Yeah, so basically, first strike death touch means that whatever it blocks it just dies.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this is broken now because of 2 reasons. 2 very clear reasons. You know exactly which those reasons are. This reminds you of an old Yu-Gi-Oh card that was unplayable, but its whole thing was that it reduces all of your monsters' attack to 100, while it could just attack.
So
It didn't do that to your health points, but damn.
you should have run with you just said it though it was unplayable, and you should have run with that because this card is unplayable. It is a very memey card. It's a meme. Obviously, people have tried to make it work. But the reality is it's a 5-mana 1/4 that has to attack alone. It's very telegraphic.
I always get confused with the mana values.
Yeah, but it's also because like there is no like in Yu-Gi-Oh when you play a monster you can attack immediately with it. In Magic you have to wait a whole turn for it to be able to attack. So like you play this and your opponent already knows what you're trying to do. So they have an entire turn to react to it. So generally this either one doesn't get to live or they just put stuff in front of it because it's better to.
See, that's the one thing I keep forgetting about you with Magic and Hearthstone players is that you guys have to wait a turn to use your monsters.
Yes, we have to wait a turn. Unless they specifically have a mechanic called haste, they cannot attack immediately. You can give haste to this, but it's still not good because at the end of the day, it's better to lose a creature to this than it is to lose the game. And people will just throw their creatures in front of it. And again, it has to attack alone, which is another issue. It probably is faster if you just attack with your other stuff. But it's a memey card, and I put it here because I wanted to see what you thought about it, because it's a very memey card. It's a fun card. I like these type of cards that are just weird. I want to show you this one though, because this is an interesting one, because I don't know if milling is a mechanic. Well, if it is a strategy in actually no, you did mention that it used to be.
Yeah, there's certain decks that are quite literally just keep milling you until you have no cards left. It was because there was a president in the anime where Yugi basically, in order to defeat someone, he basically made them run out of cards.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that the slime one.
The Slifer, yeah. Sacrifice a creature. Target players put a number of cards equal to the sacrifice target's power for the top of into their graveyard. Yeah, this is a good card.
Is it? Why?
Because 2 reasons. One, you're milling yourself and you're milling the opponent. Milling yourself allows you to get the cards you want and shorten your deck.
You only mill one person at a time.
Oh, you only mill one?
Yeah. Target player. So you can mill yourself or you can mill your opponent.
Okay, yeah, it's still a good card then. Because you have the choice. Giving you 2 good choices is never a bad thing.
This card is part of a combo that was banned where the strategy was you milled yourself until you filled your graveyard with enough resources, and then with those resources, you milled your opponent.
Wonderful.
And then you pass and they lose because they have no deck. Oh, well, this, but yeah, this card is very powerful. This card plays in Commander. This play, I don't know, I'm pretty sure I don't know if it's banned in Modern. It might not be banned in Modern, but it used to be part of a very powerful, oppressive deck that's been banned out of existence and everyone hated it.
I don't even know how to pronounce that. What the hell am I looking at?
Tarmogoyf.
Tarmogoyf is
Yes.
equal to the number of card types among the cards in the graveyard. Its toughness is equal to the number +1.
Basically, for every card type in every graveyard, it gains +1/+1 and has a toughness of 1.
I'm gonna say this card isn't good.
Why?
Because you have to have a very big diversity, and if there's anything I know about Magic players, it's that they usually don't diversify their cards that much.
So, what do you think the average stat lines of this would be in like a normal game of Magic?
Maybe 2 or 3 or 4 at most.
Okay, you're not far off. So this card, at a certain point, used to be considered one of the best 2-drop in green of all time. Now, this is just a meatball. This is just a big stat creature. Now, allow me to explain you why that was, though. So there was a deck called Jean, kind of has died off. More importantly, this card used to be a very important card in that deck because the way the deck worked was that they played with turn 1, they would play a card that looks at your opponent's hand and makes them discard. Then turn 2, they play this creature. It is a 3/4. It checks the lightning bolt check of having more than 3 health. And then on turn 3, they play a card that just kills whatever the opponent has, or makes them discard, growing this further, and their attack for like 5. The card itself is not, I would not say is amazing, but in the deck that it plays, this card is a very big guy for the cost. That's basically what this card is. It's a big meatball of stats for a very cheap, and that played in a very specific deck that just allowed it to thrive. Outside of that deck, the card is actually not that good, and anyone that thinks that it's the best 2-drop ever created is kind of delusional. The card is actually not that good, and the reason why it's not that good is shown because the moment that removal got better, this card stopped seeing play because turns out just being a big ball of stats is not enough. Used to be very strong, now it's no longer. It used to cost like $100 to get this one copy for a modern deck. And now it's like $20, I think. Like it has fallen out of favor. It just doesn't see any play. But it used to be a very powerful card.
Interesting design at the very least. What the hell am I even looking at? Soul of a new whatever that word is.
Pyrexia.
Pyrexia avatar. Trample. Well, it has 6 of nut whatever you have. Permanently you control gain indestructibility until the end of the turn. Exile Soul of Pyrexia from your graveyard. Permanently you gain indestructibility until the end of the turn. So it's a big beefy body that just refuses to leave.
Yes, you have to pay for the effect. You have to pay 5. Yeah, it gives your stuff indestructible, or if it is in your graveyard, at any time pay 5 and exile it, and it gives.
So it's like a boss monster then. Okay.
Yeah, I guess I would call it a boss monster. Yeah, if it is on the board and you have the mana, it's really hard to get it out.
Yeah, there's several cards in Yu-Gi-Oh that what you're usually building up to is something you call a boss monster. But I don't know if there's a deck you can build because for certain boss monsters, you literally have to build the deck around getting them out and getting their helpers out. So I'm going to say this is bad.
Why?
Because of that cost of 6.
So you are correct. This card is really bad. To be honest, you're not. When you said that the whole point about boss decks is that you summon the helpers and they get the boss out earlier.
They can get them out quicker.
Yeah. There are a lot of ways to cheap this out very quickly. However, the reality is that if you can't pay for that cost of the permanence, of the indestructibility, the reality is this is just a 6/6 for trample. Like, it's just a vanilla creature if you can't pay for that cost. But I wanted to show you because LDP likes these type of cards, and obviously I had to include them. Plus, I needed to find bad cards. And this was, by the way, at the time, this was like a very cool like design. They were making like a soul
It's
for
a
everything, and this was a very cool
it's a
design.
very interesting design. It looks like a giant mecha made out of just sharp pieces of
Yeah,
metal. But yeah,
it's kind of like a mixture of metal, machine, and flesh.
what the fuck? Why do so many of these magic cards look weird?
It's a merfolk. It's like a
Yes, I can see that.
mermaid, but we
Not a
don't.
very pretty mermaid.
Well, we don't really have mermaids like Disney mermaids. We're like it's, mermaids in magic are just fish
Yeah, you
people.
have Cthulhu mermaids.
Yeah, we have Cthulhu mermaids. We have fish people.
There's the Oracle. When there's Oracle enter
Yeah,
battle
which
phase,
means
look at the top of the deck of your library. Top cards, X number, where X is your devotion to blue. Devotion, what the
I'll
you put
it says there, but I'll explain it.
put up to the number of them on top of your library, then the rest of the bottom of your library in the random order. If X is greater than the or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game.
It's another one of these.
It's so big it doesn't even have flavor text. What the hell?
So allow me to explain what this basically does. So it enters the battlefield, and the first thing it will check is you see those 2 mana symbols at the top of the deck of the card where it's the cost.
Yeah.
It will basically look at every permanent you have, and for every 1 blue mana it can find, it will add them all to the X. So let's say you play this by itself. You have nothing else on the board. Your X is 2 because she counts as 2 because she has 2 symbols as the cost. But let's say you have 2 of them. That means you have 4 because you have 2 from one and 2 from the other one. And this is incremental with other permanents that you have that have also blue cost in their cards. So this can go to ridiculous numbers, but what this does is it checks for that, and then you look at the top X cards of your library. You choose one of them, put it at the top of the library, and then everything else goes at the bottom. And if that X is higher than your total cards you have, you win the game.
Oh dear. So yeah, I'm going to say this is probably unplayable.
But why? You
This
win
is
the
another
game.
win condition card. Listen, anytime you have a win condition card, you have to make it so outlandish that there's only like a, I want to say 10% chance of them ever getting it off.
Oh, Mac. What if I were to tell you this is one of the most hated cards in Commander that people just want it banned?
I'm not surprised.
So it's not just Commander. I did check it out. It does see some play in Pioneer, and I'm not entirely sure if it saw some play in Standard, because while it is true that it is an alternative condition, the one saying that you missed is that if you just mill your entire deck and you play this, you win on the spot.
You would just, if you're running a blue deck, you would just mill the entire thing and then automatically win because of it.
Yeah. In Commander, this card combos with another card, which is a black card, that the card basically says, name a card. So you name one card, and then you exile the top card of your library until you find that card.
Oh, so you're just going to do it until you find this card and then find another way to
No. You name a card you don't have in the deck. So you exile everything you have because you exile till you find it, and you can't find it, so everything goes away, and then you play this.
Dear God, it's a worse version of Morphing Jar number 2.
I despise this card because there are decks. I play competitive Commander, and I hate playing against decks that play this combo because they're so boring. They are so predictable. They always do the same shit, and it just annoys me because they're not creative. They just go like, well, I'm gonna play this card, and I'm gonna do this, and I win, yay! And it's over in like one or two turns.
That's the same thing. We have something similar again in Yu-Gi-Oh! Basically, do you know what Morphing Jar number 2 does?
I kind of remember that they all similar abilities, but like on top of my head, I can't remember.
Morphing Jar number 2 is basically put into your graveyard as many cards, basically until you find a monster to summon.
Oh, yeah.
And basically what they would do is they would mix it with Magical Explosion, which is basically like 300 damage for every spell card in the graveyard. So they just fill it with one monster and nothing but spells.
But yeah, this card is very powerful, and a lot of people hate it because, again, there's a lot of ways where you can just remove your deck, and then you play this, and you automatically win. And it's also very difficult to interact. There's very little ways to stop this type of combo. And also, even worse, it's a blue card, which means your blue in Magic is the control color. So just by you playing blue means that you also play with counters. So it's a very like it's in the perfect colors for these type of nonsense game conditions
Yeah,
because
there's
they can
there's
protect
certain
it and prevent other people from stopping it. Very annoying to deal with. But yeah, it's a card. Desecration
yeah,
Demon.
Desecration Demon creature demon flying. At the beginning of each combat, any opponent may sacrifice a creature. If a player does, tap Desecration Demon and put one on its counter.
So tapping means it can't attack.
Oh,
So basically, at the beginning of each combat, they can sack a creature so that this doesn't attack them. But it makes
but it
it
also
bigger.
gained. Yeah, see, this is where it's a bit of a divide because normally what you would do, you can just use it to stall eternally, but I don't think there's any card you can use to just get rid of it like lightning, as far as I know. Lightning
Removal
bolt.
in Magic is very efficient.
Okay, then yeah, this thing is dead.
So it's a bad card.
Yes.
Well, Mac, you're not wrong. The card, when it first came out, did not see play. At the time, there was a lot of token generation in the meta. Lots of fodder to sacrifice for this creature. Also, there was a lot of efficient removal and a lot of ways to just get rid of creatures. So the card it's just a big meaty creature that's just dumb, right? It's just a big dumb creature. But eventually rotation happened and those good cards and those token generations would leave the format. And a new meta would come in called the Mono Black deck meta.
Oh, wonderful.
That I participated in it, and it was my favorite deck of all times that played with this card. Now, am I
I
gonna
wonder
say
why the demon VTuber likes the meta black deck with the demons in them.
it is funny because my favorite color is black, but in Magic. Now, I'm not gonna say that the card is good. The card is not good, but basically it filled its role in the deck that it played in, which was it was just a big dumb beater, which is what the deck needed as a 4-drop. The deck basically was a very efficient mid-range. Basically, mid-range is where you play just efficient, powerful creatures for each cost. So you play a very efficient 1 cost, and then you play a very efficient 2 cost, and you play a very efficient 3 cost. And you just try to curve out each turn, just playing the best creature out there. And this was the 4-drop for that deck. And the reason why it was powerful is because all the other creatures were also very powerful and also had to be removed. So generally what would happen is you play this against a control deck, they already spent their removal on the other ones. So they don't have for this,
Oh.
and they just take 6. Or they have this, but they don't have for your 5th drop, so they take the 5th drop. Or against creature-based, token generators aren't in the meta anymore. They had to sack actual creatures that they have, and eventually they're just going to run out of creatures, and this is just going to slap them. So the card was not amazing, but for the deck, it just fit in like a glove. Imagine being a 4-cost card that isn't deft. Oh yeah, Sheoldred. Yeah, Sheoldred is another thing. But yeah, this card was very powerful.
Demonic
I
Pact.
am
At the
getting
beginning of
tired.
your upkeep, choosing one of these has not been chosen. Demonic Pact deals 4 damage to your target. At least you have plenty to make into a video, Jorgie.
True.
The Demonic Pact deals 4 damage to your target. And to a target creature or player, you gain 4 health. The what the fuck?
Yeah.
Target one creature opponent discard 2 cards, draw 2 cards. You lose the game.
So basically, at start of your turn, you choose one of these modes that you haven't chosen yet, and after 4 turns, you lose the game because that's the only option left for you.
I don't think Magic is fast enough to win the game in 4 turns.
But you could always remove it.
Wait, it stays on. It's one of those cards that stays on the field.
Yeah.
Okay, then never mind. It's broken as shit.
Final answer. It's broken as shit.
Yes.
Mac, you should have gone with your instinct. It's a bad card.
Okay.
But here's the funny part. I didn't even tell. This card did see some play because some people wanted it to work. But I didn't tell you how they made this try to work. So
I'm guessing it's because of the cost.
So I only told you that you could destroy it, but there are cards in this game that tell you, give target permanent you control to target opponent. And there was some decks that did try at the time, I have to give them credit because they did try, to make this work where they would choose free options, the free good options, and then they would try to give this to the opponent. And since the opponent could only pick what to lose the game, they would lose the game.
Oh, so it's basically it's not even that good of a card. It's the point where it's so bad you want to give it to your opponent.
Yes. It just it's a funny card. It's a meme card. People did try to make it work, and I have to give it to them. They did try to make it work, and sometimes it worked, but it's just it's an enchantment. There's a lot of ways to deal with enchantments, and the funnier part is that if you're playing against control decks, they just tell you no, and you lose the game.
Okay, let's
Are
see
you
what's
ready
going
for a
on.
big final boss?
Okay, let's see. Where are we going?
This is a Magic the Gathering final boss.
What the hell am I even looking at? Am I looking at giant coral floating in the
You're
sky?
looking at female Cthulhu. Yes, this is a female.
Wonderful.
Don't ask me why. I did not make this
I
up.
can't even pronounce the name. Or is
Emrakul,
the
the Eon's Torn.
I know of like female outer gods, but this is none of them.
So Eldrazi are basically the Eldritch gods
Oh,
in
and magic.
Magic, and this is like
It's
the
cannot be
mother of the
counted.
Eldrazi.
Dear God, 15?
Yes, it's a 15 cost, 15/15. Now read what it does.
When you cast this spell, take an extra turn after this one. Applying protection from spells that or colors annihilate 6.
Annihilator
When
6
is
is when it attacks, the defending player has to sacrifice 6 permanents.
what the fuck?
So when it attacks, it doesn't need to deal damage. Just by declaring attacks, they immediately have to sacrifice it.
Why not just flip over the table, pull out a gun, and shoot the other players? Put into a graveyard from ever.
So
It shuffles their graveyard into their library. So, it even does that. The one thing every player in Yu-Gi-Oh hates. When you get rid of our graveyard and just either put.
it's a big creature, big monster, big boss.
But it costs 15.
And it dies to 15 squirrels. That is correct.
This is obviously not good.
Sure? Is that your final answer? There are in Yu-Gi-Oh! You do
Mm.
have Monster Reborn.
Wait, are you saying you're gonna throw this thing into the graveyard and just revive it from the graveyard because there's no such thing saying it cannot be summoned unless given blah 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 blah?
Yes.
Oh my god, okay, then this thing's fucking broken and probably not banned or something.
It's not banned, but you are correct. This is it's not the most broken creature, big boss creatures. There is one that probably beats it up, which is Grizzlebrand, but that's because he's a draw engine. But in terms of just pure stats and just the Annihilator 6 particularly, it is this card is very powerful. It basically, there are decks built completely around it where they just send it to the graveyard, and before it shuffles itself into the library, they reanimate it, so they bring it back just to attack the opponent. So the 15 damage to the face, sacrifice 6 permanents, you're out of the game. See ya later.
They literally found ways to get around the restrictions. It's usually how you make certain boss monsters.
There was a deck that could play this like hard cast that was actually very consistent at doing it, but the deck got banned. So
I wonder why.
I wonder why, actually. To be honest, the card is not that oppressive. There's ways to go around it. There's ways to prevent it, but yeah, it's still a very powerful card, and yeah, it is a big boss. So this is the last card of the day, Mech.
Okay, what am I?
I chose a special one for this one.
You chose a somewhat sexy vampire lady for a
Somewhat
reason.
sexy.
I wonder why.
I didn't even choose it because of that, but sure.
Vampire Noble, flying, haste, which means it gets to attack you many. Sacrifice
Yes.
a creature. Gains indestructibility until the end of turn. If the creature sacrificed was a human, put it on this counter. Okay, so it's a straight up 4, so it costs 4.
Yeah, cost 4, 4/1, flying, haste.
That doesn't sound great, but it's haste, so. But the thing is, it's only a big body
Yep.
in terms of attack, so I'm gonna say this card is bad.
Because it's just a big body.
Yeah, especially in Yu-Gi-Oh! Nowadays, just beefy bodies don't mean anything.
This card, at the time, did not see that much play. However, eventually, 2 decks would appear from this card alone. One of which was an aggro deck, which...
Oh wait, it can
It can attack immediately. For the aggro deck, this was the top finisher of the deck, so the last card they would play to just kill the opponent. The sack outlet was also relevant because it could protect itself in case they had a removal. However, later even on, a new deck archetype would begin called the Aristocrat deck.
Wonderful.
Which namesake from this card and another Aristocrat creature that has Aristocrat in the name. That the main part was not that this was a haster or a flyer or even a 4/1. It was that it had a sack outlet for free. So
So it's because it's part of an archetype that involves that.
basically, the archetype is you sacrifice creatures to do a bunch of different effects, such as whenever a creature you control dies, your opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Whenever a creature you dies, you make a token, that kind of shenanigans. And for those decks to work, they needed sack outlets where they could just sacrifice creatures willy-nilly. And this and another one that was a 2-cost were the main sack outlets of those decks. I love Aristocrats, and I just had to include this because I played both the aggro deck, and then when the Aristocrat deck came out, I transitioned to that one because I already had this one and just had to switch a couple of cards. The card is not, like, amazing. It's just that at the time, this was one of the better sack outlets that they had available. So creatures that could, an ability to sack their creatures. Some people like to deal infinite damage, and I just like to deal 1 at a time. What do you think about Magic? You want to play Magic?
Probably not, especially since you told me especially not to.
Yeah, don't. It's easier to do drugs than Magic. It's cheaper.
Yeah, that's a glowing endorsement.
Do drugs, people. Don't do Magic.
Don't say that.
Yeah, don't do that, actually. Twitch, I'm joking. It's a joke. For legal reasons, it's a joke. 1, 2, 3, 4... Oh, wait. No, not 4 yet. 4, 5...